Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Week 4 episode of Stacking the Box. Sterling, Holmes, and myself, Iain MacMillan, here to talk about, for the next hour, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. That's all we're going to talk about on the show today. No, I am going to bring that up a little bit later on the show. We have to talk about it, Sterling. But we are going to talk about, yes, we do. We are going to talk about some actual football. We're going to recap this past week's action, biggest winner and loser, top story of the day, which relates to the Miami Dolphins. And then we're going to do a little quick preview for week 4 games, including our best bets, which we'll get to it later on in the show, Sterling. But both of us need a little bit of a bounce back in our picks after week 3, which was a complete disaster. But before we get into it, football fans, DraftKings is up their sign-up offer to kick off football season. New users can place a $5 bet instantly to claim $200 in bonus bets, plus up to $150 back in bonus bets if your team loses. All you have to do is sign up with their code STB. That is STB. And using that code not only gets you these great bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, and you should, make sure to use the code STB to maximize your first bets. And with that extra bonus of getting some money back, if you do lose in bonus bets, that's great, because if you tail our picks, you need some of that money back in bonus bets, because it was a tough week this past week. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. Code STB.
Yeah, like a haircut, you got to fade us.
Yes, correct. Well, we started off good the first couple weeks. Last week was a tough one. But yeah, we are going to get into that a little bit later in the show. Let's start off, Sterling, as always, with our biggest winners and losers of the week. Why don't you start us off? Who or what is your biggest winner from this past week in the NFL?
Whoever plays the Bears the rest of the season. Sorry, Bears fans, but that team is, you know what, quite frankly, it's disrespectful to call it a dumpster fire, because it's disrespectful to dumpster fires. They are that bad right now. What is going on in Chicago is not ideal. I said it when they had the first overall draft pick. Unless you are 100% certain Justin Fields is the guy, you draft a quarterback, you take a quarterback. You do not know when you're going to get that number 1 spot ever again. Well, they might get it next year, because they are that bad. That team is just horrendous offensively, defensively, offensive line, coaching, special teams, off the field. There's 2 fields in issues, Justin and their own, as they're getting gators and lawnmowers stolen. It's just I'm in utter disbelief about what's going on with the Chicago Bears. I tried to tell everyone to pump the brakes on them this offseason. Iain, I think you're in the same boat as me. People were not listening. People kept saying Chicago, NFC North champion. They might win a playoff game. Justin Fields, dark horse MVP candidate. I go, let's let him see what he can do first. Let's see him get into a top 10 offensive player before we try saying he's a dark horse MVP candidate. I wanted everyone to pump the brakes. They didn't. That team's bad. Whoever plays the Bears the rest of this season, they are my biggest winner.
Yeah, Justin Fields is one of the most bet-on players to win NFL MVP this year, which was absolutely wild. We both called that in the offseason. Even I, though, didn't think they're going to be as bad as they have been. Who's the biggest dumpster fire, though? And ironically, we're going to see a matchup between these 2 teams this week. The Bears or the Broncos? Who's the bigger dumpster fire?
Bears.
Wow, interesting.
But I will say that the Broncos have a good case, just based on, we'll get to it in a little bit. I'll give my biggest loser. Don't you worry about that one. But it's a really close call.
My biggest winner of the week is Dolphins fans. Jury's still out on just how good this Dolphins team is, I think, and we are actually going to talk about that a little bit later. It's our top story, but regardless, the top winner is Dolphins fans, because even if your team is not a Super Bowl contender, or even if they're not going to win the Super Bowl, the most exciting thing to have is an electric offense. And I think scoring 70 points is the definition of an electric offense. I think the closest I got to having that much fun as a fan of my Falcons was when Julio Jones had 300 receiving yards in a game. I think it was against the Panthers. Dolphins fans must have had one of the best times ever in their life watching their team play this past week, scoring 70 points, which is hard to do in a game of Madden, let alone an actual game in the NFL. They had a chance to set the scoring record late in the game, but they ended up just taking a knee instead of just completely rubbing it in the face of the Broncos. But biggest winner of the week, Dolphins fans because this team is fun.
I think it's actually more disrespectful to take the knee right there. That's saying we put up 70 and we're still going to go easy on you. We weren't even trying to put up 70. We're going easy on you guys. See, we're kneeling the clock out. We could score more, but we're not going to. I found that almost more disrespectful. I was a huge fan of that. That made me laugh.
There's a tweet sent out by Justin Cohen at Bad Boy of Scoop saying, speaking with multiple NFL owners, I'm told there was a common feeling that Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel running up the score in the Broncos was disrespectful to the game of football. You know what I think is disrespectful to the game of football? Allowing 70 points.
Yeah. Maybe giving it, well, let's be real. Luckily, the Broncos, didn't give a extremely large contract to a washed up quarterback. Then they brought in a head coach, and hopefully they didn't give up, multiple draft picks to bring in a head coach. And hopefully that head coach wasn't spewing all offseason how the previous coaching regime was an absolute dumpster fire, how no chance Russell Wilson's this bad anymore, how he's going to fix them, taking shots at potentially a head coach or a former head coach who is now with the Jets, taking shots there. Yeah, there's no chance that happened for Broncos fans, right?
Well, maybe. Which leads you into your biggest loser of the week, which is
Sean Payton, man. Sean Payton. You can't talk off-season talk, all just trashing the previous coaching regime and just sitting here saying how they're so bad. No way Russell Wilson's this bad. It had to be the coach. This is the worst coaching display I've ever seen. No, the worst coaching display I've ever seen, Sean, was Sunday when you got a 70 burger put on your head on your dome. Sean Payton, come on, guy. I said then, and I'll say it now, absolute zero self-awareness from Sean Payton. Congratulations on having a Hall of Fame quarterback your entire tenure and winning one Super Bowl. Yeah, I get it. You may have been an offensive genius back in the day. You aren't anymore. Okay, whenever you win only one Super Bowl and have the little playoff success that you had with a Hall of Fame quarterback in your entire time there in New Orleans, you might be a little overrated. I always say he's closer to Mike McCarthy than he is to Bill Belichick. People always like to laugh at that, but who's laughing now? Come on, Sean, get it together.
Yeah, and that's actually, it kind of brings me to why I think the Broncos are actually the bigger dumpster fire than the Bears right now, because the Broncos have the Russell Wilson contract tied up. They just traded for Sean Payton. At least the Bears aren't in like a salary cap hell. Like the Bears have 2 first-round picks that are going to end up being probably both top 5 picks possibly this year. So I think they're at least in a better position to recover from this season, where the Broncos aren't. I don't know where the Broncos go from here because it's a disaster.
Yeah, well, they have a lot of money. That's the one thing I will say. The Broncos are not afraid to shake things up, make some drastic moves. They have the most money in the NFL. They'll find ways eventually if they want to move on. But I'm with you, man. Both are not looking good.
My biggest loser of the week is me. I think this is the second or third time already that I'm the biggest loser of the week. Last week, I don't know if I said it on this show, but I do a fraud rankings every week on BetSide that you can check out. Comes out Wednesdays, where I rank the top 5 biggest frauds in the NFL. Cowboys were number 3 on the list. I also went on some other radio shows claiming how the Cowboys are not nearly as good as people say they are. They are frauds. And then what did I do? I bet them to cover the spread. I bet them in my teaser of the week, and I took them in my survivor pool. Wrong. I said one thing and then did the complete opposite. I was like, yeah, they're frauds, but they're still going to beat up on the Cardinals. No, they lost, and now I'm eliminated in Survivor. You've beaten me in Survivor. I lost my bet. Not only my single bet on them, but they were also in my teaser of the week, my 7-point teaser. They couldn't even cover a 5-point spread. They lost outright. So Cowboys are the biggest loser of the week, which then makes me the biggest loser of the week for not following my own advice when I called them frauds.
What do I win for beating you in Survivor? Do we whistle pig? I
don't think we decided on that, but
a nice bottle of bourbon. That's what I was thinking.
I'll buy you a bottle of bourbon. Sure.
You can see over my shoulder right there. There's some bourbons back there. Big bourbon guy.
All right, done. Bottle of bourbon. But I mean, we are going to get to it a little bit later, but we are still going to do Survivor. I want to see how far you can go.
Deal.
But we'll talk about that a little bit more. So there's our biggest winner and losers of the week. Sterling, you got some injury updates before we go to our top story.
Mike Williams tore his ACL. This is a huge loss for the Chargers. It does seem like they are perpetually cursed. Let's be honest. It seems like every single year they have major injuries to major players. It's no laughing matter. You hate seeing these guys go down. Mike Williams was having a phenomenal game. Great game, right? That Chargers-Vikings game. A lot of interesting mistakes going on in that game, but Keenan Allen was amazing. And then Mike Williams also had himself a great game, but he is out for the season with a torn ACL. Jimmy G getting a concussion. Looked like he actually came back in that game, but now he's getting he's in concussion protocol. So his next week's availability is still up in the air. And then in regards to Joe Burrow obviously had that calf injury. He was able to play through it. That to me was a bit of a surprise. I thought it made sense for him to rest, but looks like they needed him in that game. He didn't have a great game, but just enough to get it done over the Rams. But again, to me, the Mike Williams injury is probably the largest fantasy football repercussions out there.
And I'll say Derek Carr, I'll toss his name in the mix too. Sprained AC joint. He's week to week for the Saints. But I kind of want to see Jameis Winston play if that's who's going to step in. If he can't go, if they're just going to roll with Taysom Hill. But I need more Jameis Winston in my life.
Yeah, just for the comedic effect of everything he does makes me smile. He just seems like a nice guy. Like I would love to grab a beer with Jameis Winston just to hear him talk.
Yes, he's the best. All right, top story. And maybe this could have been an overreact, underreact. Now, I was very tempted to make Taylor Swift the top story because let's be honest, Sterling, that is the objective top story in the world of NFL. But we'll keep that for the next portion of the show. I made the top story today. Do the Dolphins have one of the greatest offenses of all time? Or is that an overreaction? This could be an overreact, underreact segment here, but the Dolphins, 70 points last week. I think they're 3 points shy of having the most points in NFL history through the first 3 weeks. I think a Cowboys team from the 90s had 3 more points through the first 3 weeks. Could have set the scoring record this past week for a single game. Could have set the record for most yards in a game. And now with the extra game on the NFL schedule, if they keep this pace, they are going to set the offensive records for most points scored in a season, probably most yards gained in a season. What's your feel on the Dolphins offense? Are they as good as advertised through the first 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think they are as good as advertised. I don't want to say they're the best in NFL history. That's a bold take through only 3 weeks. That's not even a bold take. That to me is almost an asinine take to say they are the best. I need to see more. But as you mentioned, they are trending that way, Ian. Tua Tagovailoa, the question has always been, can he stay healthy? I've said I don't think he's the most talented quarterback in the NFL by any means. I don't think he's even a top 5 most talented quarterback in the NFL. Doesn't matter because he is perfect for that offense. He gets the ball out to his receivers in a very quick way. One of the just quickest releases in the NFL. When you have Tyreek Hill, and oh, by the way, they put up 7 without Jalen Waddle. Right. They put that up without their wide receiver too. They have 2 running backs who are electric. They have speed all over the field. Offensive line has held up. That offense with Mike McDaniel, with Tua Tagovailoa, with Tyreek Hill, with all of the speed and the weapons, it's a perfect marriage. You take one piece out. You take Tyreek Hill out, they probably take a huge step back. You try and put even Justin Herbert instead of Tua Tagovailoa in that offense. I think it's going to look completely different. I'm not saying Justin Herbert's not more talented because I do think he's more talented, but talent doesn't always translate to certain offenses. Tua Tagovailoa does exactly what is asked of him. He doesn't do things that he doesn't put the ball in harm's way, gets the ball out quick. Just to me, they are a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, Tua, once again, he was the favorite last week to win NFL MVP, even more of a favorite now around, if you're looking at DraftKings Sportsbook, and if you want to place a bet on NFL MVP, use the code STB when you sign up. But plus 380 favorite at DraftKings. Tua is right now Mahomes second on the odds list at plus 550. Then Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, 7th on the odds list at 20-1. I'm interested to see how this Dolphins offense holds up as the season goes on, because I think with their offense being based solely on, not solely, but a big portion of it is their speed. They are by far the fastest offense in the NFL. That's a little bit easier to do in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Can they keep up that level of speed when you get to the middle of the season, when you get to the later parts of the season. Their offense started off hot last year too, and then faltered a little bit as the season went on. Obviously, a lot of that had to do with Tua having concussion issues, but I think speed is something that as the weeks and games kind of pile on, it's a little bit harder to play at that fast of a pace. So right now, historic trend. Am I sold on if they can keep it up for 17 regular season games plus the playoffs? Not yet.
What I will say though, they played the Chargers, who are not a good defense. That much we know, right? Yes. Patriots, I think, are a good defense, right? And that was obviously their lowest scoring output of 24 points. And Denver, though, going into this year, we thought Denver's defense was still going to be solid. We didn't think it was anything. It wasn't the Jets, it wasn't the Eagles or the Niners, but we thought the Denver Broncos were going to have at least a decent defense. And they went through a hot knife through butter against them. So that to me is very impressive. Again, we understand the inflation of these numbers, only 3 games, but when you were averaging 552 yards per game, you look like you are a college team, right? That looks like the 08 Missouri Tigers. That looks like Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes down there. 888 yards on the ground and 363 through the air. They're well balanced. Again, this is without Jalen Waddle. I don't know how you say this doesn't keep up. I get what you're saying. I'm not saying they're putting up 70 each game, but as far as just the electricity of this offense, the ability to score at any moment, I think it does keep up. I think they probably end up as the highest scoring offense in the NFL. Maybe not a bold take considering they put up a 70 spot and the Chiefs started off slow, but it would take a dramatic change of pace for them to not be the highest scoring offense in the NFL this year.
Huge game from them this week. We're going to talk about it a little bit later when we preview week 4, but at the Bills, that is a massive, massive, massive game. But I'm looking a little bit further in the schedule. They have a 3-game stretch, which is going to be pivotal. We're really going to get a feel for how good this team is and how good this offense is week 4 or 5. So from 7 to week 9, they have at the Eagles, home to the Patriots, who has given them the toughest challenge so far, and then at the Chiefs. So they're playing on the road against the 2 Super Bowl teams in the span of 3 weeks with the Patriots thrown in the middle. That's a pivotal stretch where we're really going to find out what this team and what this offense is made of.
And that Chiefs game is going to actually be in Frankfurt, Germany. So it's
is that in Germany?
That's the Germany game. So that's going to be a long travel time. That's going to be a very interesting tidbit there. Tyreek Hill going into this year said he wanted to be the first receiver over 2,000 yards. He's already over 400, has 4 touchdowns. We all laughed about it, but quite frankly, it definitely is in the realm of possibilities at this point. This looks like the best Tyreek Hill has ever looked. Yes. He always looked good in Kansas City. Don't get me wrong. Like, he was phenomenal, but he almost looks better now. I don't know if with age, he has just refined his game more. I don't know if it's because Tua Tagovailoa just gets him the ball a little quicker, if he's more of the focal point in Miami, but the speed is still there. Yes. The shiftiness is still there. And it seems like the target share is even greater. Just the athleticism has not waned with age, and the experience has grown. Tyreek Hill looks like the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, bar none.
Yes, absolutely. Let's move on to overreact or underreact. Now, this is when I finally get to bring up Taylor Swift, which is pivotal for you as a Chiefs fan. Overreact or underreact, Taylor Swift is a distraction for Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Who cares?
A lot of people do, Sterling.
I get it, but
a lot of people care.
I get it. And I'm not going to yuck someone's yum. If you care, you care. I get it. But for me, it's their personal lives. It's their personal lives. Like, if they want to date, if that's fine. That does not bother me whatsoever. It's cool, I guess. It's fine. But like, during the game, I get it. The Chiefs were beating the Bears so bad, there was nothing else to talk about. But Greg Olsen kept talking about Taylor Swift. I guess because you have to fill time. But I'm sitting here going, I just don't care that much.
I mean, during the games, Patrick Mahomes and other teammates were turning around, looking up at the skybox, waving to Taylor Swift. Shouldn't they be focused on the game?
They were focused enough winning 41-10. I think it was okay. When you're blowing a team out that bad, you're doing anything just to have some fun. Mahomes after the game said I had to get my boy Travis Kelce a touchdown there. It's fine. Taylor Swift is the biggest performer there in the world right now, at
Yes,
least
he might be the most famous
in the
person on planet
USA.
Earth.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Travis Kelce, shout out tight ends, right? Like the tight end market's got to be booming
Yes.
right now, feeling pretty good. I will say it was something from like a Hallmark movie, right? Travis Kelce gets he takes her to a game. He has a touchdown, scores. They crush and they're having a lot of fun, and then he drives away in a top down. What was like an old like 1967 Camaro. I mean, it was pretty sweet. Don't get me wrong. I just don't care that much about football players, what they choose to date or who they choose to date and what they choose to do off the field. That's their own
Of
personal
course.
lives.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be a distraction. It is fun. I do actually kind of love it though, because I love the battle between Taylor Swift fans who think that like Travis Kelce is like below Taylor Swift because he's a football player, and then there's football fans that are like, she should be lucky that she's dating Travis Kelce. He's a future Hall of Famer. Speaking of tight ends, earlier today,
I saw a great one, man. I saw a really good one from a Taylor Swift account on Twitter saying, Taylor needs to watch out. Looks like Travis has a little bit of a hot head. It was when he was getting in a fight during training camp when he was pushing that. Someone was like,
she should watch out.
I'm like, it's football. What do you?
Well, not everyone punches teammates.
Well.
I spoke to Mark Andrews this morning, and if you're listening to the audio version of this show, you will hear the Mark Andrews interview to close out the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, the Mark Andrews video will be live tomorrow, Wednesday, so check that out. But of course, I had to ask him exactly about this because, as you mentioned, Sterling, the tight end position now might be the hottest position to play in football.
Yeah, who's he dating now?
I didn't want to ask him about his personal life. I tried to find out myself. I tried to do some investigative work. I could not find it out. I didn't want to put him on the spot and ask about his dating life.
Yeah, but Rihanna might be out there. I don't know. We'll just throw some.
I didn't want to ask him like who he's now going to target a date, and then he'd be like, "I'm actually married," but nobody knows that. So I didn't put him on the spot. But yeah, now he needs to step up. He's supposed to be the number 2 guy behind Kelce. If Kelce's dating Taylor Swift, he's got to find someone. I don't know. I think Rihanna's married, isn't she? So
probably.
I don't know who would be the next closest to Taylor Swift, but he's got to get on that. All right, finally moving on from Taylor Swift. I'm sure, though, that this won't be the last that we're going to hear about Taylor Swift the rest of the season. Overreact or underreact? Colts leading the AFC South after week 3, 2-1 record. The Jaguars were supposed to be the cream of the crop. I think one of the biggest favorites to win a division this season was the Jaguars. The Jaguars have now lost to the Texans this past week after losing to the Chiefs in week 2. And all of a sudden, the Colts upset the Ravens. In overtime, the Colts sole possession of first place in the AFC South. Should we be overreacting or underreacting to their hot start? Are they a good football team?
I don't think they're a good football team, but I don't think the Jags are as good as we thought. I mean, the Jags have not looked good. I know you're 3 weeks into the season. They have a larger sample size last year. They're getting Calvin Ridley involved, and he's looked pretty darn good. But that defense does not look as good as it once had, or once did, I should say. Offensive line has had some issues. I love Doug Peterson, but I've never been as high on Trevor Lawrence as the majority of people. I think he's a good quarterback, but I don't know how much he was ever going to be this elite quarterback. And maybe I can still be wrong, but I just thought he was going to be a good QB, not a great one. That's what we have seen from him so far. The Texans, as I said, are going to be a little better than people think. I don't think the Texans are a good team, but they're better than people think. Again, I said C.J. Stroud, the best quarterback coming out of that draft. He already looks a lot better than Bryce Young. He's had a really nice start to his season so far. The offensive line for Houston has been a big thing for him. You know, they've focused on making sure they got Laramie Tunsil signed there. They got a couple wide receivers. Tank Dell's been nice, that rookie wide receiver. They have a nice connection already between Stroud and Tank Dell. But again, the Colts, Anthony Richardson looks way more polished than I thought he would. Whether it's more polished or he's able to just translate his athleticism from Florida to the NFL that much smoother, he's looked pretty good. And he was out last game. Gardner Minshew got it done. Now, I always like Gardner Minshew. I like his personality. I think he's funny. But he's also a pretty darn good backup quarterback. Now, I don't know how many games you win if he's starting the full season for you. But in a pinch, he's a damn good backup to have. I don't think the Colts are a good team. But I don't know if the Jacksonville Jaguars are a good team either.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. The Jaguars were very hot in the second half of the season last year, but I guess we got to remember, and this is on me as well, because I was kind of high on the Jaguars coming this season. They weren't great in the first half, so they kind of caught fire in the second half. Maybe we'll see a similar result here this season for the Jaguars, but so far, I mean, that division maybe doesn't belong to the Colts, but now it's a lot more up in the air than it was seemingly before the season started. So the Colts, one thing we do know that they're going to do well is stop the run. They're one of the better run defenses last year. Excuse me. They've been one of the better run defenses so far this year. And any team that can stop the run is going to be tricky for a lot of teams to face. So I'm going to underreact a little bit to them leading the AFC South through week 3, but I'm going to overreact to the AFC South now being a lot more wide open than we all originally thought. Overreact or underreact to the Vikings season potentially being over already at 0-3, a winless Vikings team. Are we overreacting or underreacting to their 0-3 record to start the year?
If you think their season's over at 0-3, that's a serious overreaction.
Yes.
There are still 14 games left. If you look at, I get it's the start of the season, all that stuff. How many playoff teams have had a 0-3 stretch at any point in the season? The Vikings just so happens to be at the start. They've actually looked like a pretty decent team, which makes this even more intriguing to me. Offensively, they've been humming. Kirk Cousins has looked really, really good. I know Jefferson went out at one point with an injury, so that's something to at least keep an eye on. But the defense needs to turn around for the Vikings if they don't have any hope of turning this season around, but they have time. 14 games. The offensive line has also been a little bit of a disaster as well. Kirk Cousins perpetually seems to be getting hit hard time and time again, but that dude is one tough SOB. I think the Vikings bounce back. I don't think that NFC North is that good. I know the Lions are 2-1. The Packers are 2-1 as well. You know, I'm not super high on the Packers, although Jordan Love does look solid. The Lions, I think, they're probably a playoff team, but in a down NFC, I think 2 teams from the NFC North make it. I think both the Vikings and Lions end up making the playoffs. No, the Vikings season is not over.
Yeah, I agree. It's very funny, and I mentioned this last week, and it's kind of been more of the same for the Vikings, where last year they were a team that I felt had a lot of luck, and they won a lot of games they didn't deserve to win. You could make the argument they've deserved to win all 3 games so far this season, despite them being 0-3, and the statistics kind of back it up. Net yards per play, my favorite stat to look at. Obviously, it doesn't take into consideration a lot of things, but it's the yards gained per play on offense, subtract the yards given up per play on defense. Vikings 7th in the NFL at plus 0.7, despite being 0-3. So that's better marks than the Bills. It's better marks than the Cowboys. It's better marks than a lot of teams. So yeah, I'm not giving up on the Vikings just quite yet, especially just because, like you mentioned, Sterling, not exactly the strongest division. It'd be a little bit different if they had one team in that division that was definitely going to win it, a team that was a 3-0, and then now we're looking at the Vikings having to try to battle for a wild card spot at best. But that division is still wide open, even with the Lions and the Packers being at 2-1. So yeah, I'm underreacting to them being 0-3 to start the year. Overreacting or underreacting? Bijan Robinson deserves to be the offensive rookie of the year through the first 3 weeks, because this is a great season for rookies in general. A lot of rookies, both offensively and defensively, have had a good start, but it's still Bijan Robinson, 3-1 favorite ahead of Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Puka Nacua, Zay Flowers, Davon A-Chain, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Addison, Tank Dell, Bryce Young. There are a lot of good rookies. Does Bijan Robinson still deserve to be the favorite?
I would probably go with CJ Stroud, or actually most likely Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua deserves to be the rookie of the year if it ended right now. Well, the season doesn't end right now. We'll see what happens if and when Cooper Kupp comes back, how much that actually takes into and bites into Puka Nacua's target share, yards per game, receptions, all that stuff. Because Puka Nacua right now would be my guy. But I do think CJ Stroud and maybe even Anthony Richardson, when it's all said and done, are going to have a good case in their own right. It's going to be difficult probably for CJ Stroud record-wise, probably difficult for Anthony Richardson as well record-wise. But I think this is a really deep and really good rookie class. You're the Atlanta guy here. What are your thoughts on Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, he took a bit of a step back this week, which isn't great to see. The Lions completely shut down the Falcons' offense. Only 10 carries for 33 yards. So with how many good performances there are from other rookies, I'm surprised to see that he is still the betting favorite. Now, a lot of it, when it comes down to odds, does have to do with liabilities from the sports books as well. So it's not just necessarily the most deserving, but you got to take into consideration where most of the money has been bet up to this point. But I agree. I think if it ends today, but then again, Puka Nacua, he had a decent game last night, but still a bit of a step back. 5 catches for 72 yards. But still, I think if the season ended today, 3 weeks in, I think it's still Puka Nacua who probably deserves to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. But there's a lot of names on this list. If I was betting on someone to win it right now, I would not be betting Bijan Robinson at 3-1. There's so much better value on this board.
Yeah.
All right, overreact or underreact. Zach Wilson is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL.
Man, yeah, he is.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Josh Dobbs, the way Justin Fields has played probably has his name in the ring, but I believe more in Justin Fields than I do Zach Wilson. Dude, he's bad. It's bad.
He's gotten worse. He's actually gotten worse compared to previous seasons.
And it was hilarious because that first game he came in, I thought, all right, he had that one bad interception. But besides that, I was like, he played solid, right? Maybe he has grown. Maybe he has learned and settled down a little bit. We know he has the athletic traits and the tools, right? He's mobile, big arm. Dude, he's bad. I don't know how much of it is it mental? Because he does have a lot of the physical tools, right? But a lot of guys had physical tools. Jamarcus Russell is the name that always comes to mind. But Ryan Leaf had the physical tools. But there's not just physical attributes in the NFL. It's the mental side as well. Zach Wilson, former Jets quarterback, looks like he's seen ghosts, right? Sam Darnold said that. Looks like Zach Wilson is seeing ghosts too.
Yeah, I'm overreacting. I think this is they got to go somewhere else. He has completed 52.4% of passes, 5.6 yards per throw, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And this is a team that has one of the better defenses in the NFL, and they can't do anything. 10 points the last 2 games. 10 points offensively in week 1, too. They won 22-16. So they got a few more than 10 points, but still the winning touchdown was a special teams touchdown. This is not good.
But
it's a disaster.
I don't know where the Jets go because the offensive line is horrendous. Horrendous. There are so many injuries, just a plethora of injuries along the offensive line. People are moving everywhere. You have to have a mobile quarterback. Like you put Matt Ryan back there, that's going to be even worse because Matt Ryan's he's a statue, right? You put Joe Flacco back there, it's going to look even worse because at least Zach Wilson's slightly athletic, right? He can move. He's mobile. Right. I'll give him that. I don't know where the Jets go because it's not just a plug and play if you get a veteran quarterback. You also have to have a veteran quarterback who's mobile. And that's going to be the issue for them. I don't know the way the Jets even consider going at this point because this is bad, man. I think the offensive line has to be fixed first because how much can you put on Zach Wilson when he's constantly under pressure? You can put some. He's not good, but again, if you're not getting any sort of time, you got to. It's a two-way street here.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare season for Jets fans who had Super Bowl aspirations when things started. The last one here, we actually kind of touched on this already, but bigger dumpster fire between the Broncos and the Bears. You say Bears, I say Broncos.
Yeah. The Broncos, just because they have a lot of money, I think they can get out of this. I know they can't necessarily because of the contract to Russell Wilson. They give draft capital to bring in a head coach who I think was little too cocky about the whole situation. But the thing with the Bears, they thought that they were competing this year. Like they thought that this was their year, and they're not even close. They give a lot of money to bring in a middle linebacker, right? They tried to fix that defense. That defense looks bad, man. They're one of the worst defenses right now in the NFL. And now I thought they were going to be pretty good, but they look bad. Their left tackle, who was a sophomore, second-year guy, pretty good last year, now on the IR, missing 4 games. Darnell Wright, who I like a lot, got absolutely destroyed in that Chiefs-Bears game. And I like Darnell Wright a lot, but he was taken 10th overall. They moved up pretty high to get that guy. The Bears they don't look good. Just anything they have done they've missed on. The coaching looks to be a disaster as well. They're going to have to clean house again. Does Ryan Poles, who they just brought in as GM a couple of years ago, is he out? I mean, there's so much instability going on in Chicago right now. Just because of that, I think there's the bigger dumpster fire than the Broncos, but it's very close.
Well, odds makers would agree with you because the Broncos and Bears play this week, and the Bears are 3.5-point underdogs at home. So if you're just talking about which team's worse this season, odds makers seem to believe it's the Bears by a significant margin.
Yeah.
Speaking of this week, let's move on to week 4. Let's preview and give our thoughts for a few of the best games on the slate. We'll start with Thursday Night Football, which is an interesting one. NFC North matchup between the Lions and the Packers. Lions, 1.5-point favorite in Green Bay. Both teams sitting at 2-1 atop the NFC North. The winner of this game will have sole possession of first place in the division. General thoughts on this game. Are you surprised that the Lions are just a 1.5-point favorite?
No, not at all. I thought it should be. If anything, I thought it might be a pick'em game too, because Green Bay has shown a lot so far. I mean, they've looked pretty solid. They could be 3-0, right? What game they lose to? They lost to the Falcons, right? That was the Falcons game. They lost by 1 point. Yeah. I mean, again, you can make the same case. They probably should have lost to the Saints, but they found a way to win late in that one. Packers have impressed me. The Lions have been okay. I know they beat the Chiefs, but they didn't do a ton in that game. They had a great, fake punt, but that offense was not humming like it was towards the end of last year. I think it's a pretty fair line. Personally, I might even go with the Packers in this one just because they are at home.
So I'm going with the Lions. One thing about the Packers that I don't think enough people are talking about, Jordan Love. I know he has thrown 7 touchdowns and only 1 interception, I think. But Jordan Love through the first 3 weeks has a completion percentage of just 53.1%. The only quarterback in the NFL with a worse completion percentage is Zach Wilson. It's difficult to continue to win games when you're completing 53% of passes. Obviously, the touchdowns are great. Obviously, the lack of interceptions is great. But if you're only completing 53.1% of passes, that's going to come back to bite you. And I think it's going to bite them this week against the Lions. So I actually like the Lions a lot in this game. I think the Packers are borderline fraudulent because I don't think they're as good as a record or as good as most people think. Because Jordan Love is getting a lot of praise, I think, so far this season that I don't think is necessarily deserved.
We will see. I will say, if we are betting people out there, if you guys like to bet, take Ian's advice over mine. That much I will say.
Yeah, we'll get to some picks here in a little bit and talk about our records from last week. Neither of us were good last week. Dolphins at Bills, game of the week here. Bills 2.5-point favorites at home to the Miami Dolphins, who have looked electric. We've already talked about them on this show. Where do you think this game goes? This is going to be the first true test for the Dolphins this season.
Dude, I do not know. If I'm a bettor, I am not touching this game unless you are super confident in something. There's so many different ways I can see this game playing out. The Bills defense is solid. I love Matt Milano at linebacker is just outstanding. The Dolphins have retooled their defense overall from a year ago. They are a little better. Josh Allen at times reverted back to what he was his rookie year, and now no Brian Daboll. I've always said that's a big loss for the Bills because his turnover margin just skyrocketed up. He started having the turnover issue again the second Brian Daboll left. Well, he's looked okay the past couple of weeks since that first week 1. Miami just put up a 70 spot on what I thought was a decent defense, probably the same ilk as the Bills defense. How much of that is just the Broncos giving up, rolling over? How much would the Bills understand that, hey, this is a divisional game, we need to have it. They're going to play a little tougher. I just don't touch this game, man. I think this is going to be a great game. I can't wait to watch, but I want to watch as a fan, not as a bettor.
Yeah, if there's any game that you can just watch without betting on it and you're still going to, feel just as much excitement, it would be this one. I like the Dolphins getting the points in this one. I'm not totally sold on the Bills so far this season. I know they're coming off 2 big wins. Those wins were against the Raiders and Commanders, but when you look at their metrics, actually not as impressive as you would think after 2 blowout wins. Just 9th in the NFL in net yards per play at plus 0.3. Dolphins lead the NFL in net yards per play at plus 3.1. The next closest team is plus 1.8. So obviously a small sample size, 3 games, but analytically the Dolphins the metrics match what the final score has been in their games, whereas the Bills maybe not so much. So I would set this game as a pick 'em. I'll take the points with the Dolphins, but it's going to be a fun one for sure. Total at 53.5. So odds makers are expecting some points in this one. AFC North battle, Ravens at Browns. Browns 2.5-point home favorites, over under 41. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, give me the Ravens. Straight up, give me the Ravens. I know the Browns have had a couple of impressive wins. I know this was the best Deshaun Watson has looked, even though the average air yards weren't great. It's like he's really pushing the ball downfield a ton. I think the Ravens are going to win the AFC North this year. Lamar Jackson hasn't looked great, but they're still getting used to the new revamped offense, right? I don't want to say a pass-first offense, but a much more balanced offense. Obviously, they're still going through some growing pains, but his connection with Zay Flowers is very impressive already. I like the Ravens in this game. I think they're a more talented team, even with the Browns defense looking pretty darn solid to start the year.
Yeah, as much as I don't trust the Browns offense, it's kind of hard for me to bet against the Browns now with how dominant their defense is. They've given up just 3.2 yards per play. That's the fewest in the NFL by 0.9. So they're giving up almost a full yard per play fewer than the next best team. And by the way, the next best team in opponent yards per play, the Ravens, giving up 4.1. So I'll just take the under in this one. I was high on the Ravens defense heading into the season, I think higher than most people. But they have lived up to my expectations. They've been a very good defense. The Browns have been the best defense. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the under in what I think will be a bit of a slugfest here in the AFC North. So low total, 41.5. I'll take the under.
Nice.
Patriots, Cowboys. Cowboys -7. Can the Cowboys bounce back after what might be the most embarrassing loss of the season against the Cardinals? Well, probably not as embarrassing as giving up 70 points to the Dolphins, but losing to the Cardinals was bad. And it wasn't even close.
Can they bounce back? Yes. Will they bounce back? That remains to be seen, but I'm going to say yes as well. I think they do bounce back in this game. They are a team with Super Bowl aspirations being in that NFC, right? They're going to have something to prove. They understand this. I know it's a cliche to say, they got something to prove, a chip on their shoulder. I hate that saying, but they're going to be very, very focused. The Patriots aren't a super talented team. I do love Christian Gonzalez, that cornerback they drafted. I loved it when he fell to the Patriots. I thought that was going to be a perfect marriage between Bill Belichick and Christian Gonzalez for his career. So far, early returns look extremely, extremely good. But I do think the Cowboys are just a much more talented team. They're going to win this game, and I think they win it by double digits.
I will save my thoughts for this game because it's one of my picks this week. So I'm going to hold my thoughts on a little bit, but it's going to be an interesting one. The fifth game I want to bring up is Monday Night Football just because the spread's so close, but I do want to get your thoughts on the Chiefs game as well. So why don't we actually just start with the Chiefs really quick? Really quick, as a Chiefs fan, how do you feel about this against the Jets? 9.5-point favorites, not the double-digit mark. Do the Chiefs just run all over the Jets now that there's no Aaron Rodgers? Which, by the way, this Sunday Night Football game is going to be great. Now it's not looking so great now.
Yeah, I think they do. The Chiefs defense has been really good to start the season. Yeah. They've gelled really well. Steve Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator, especially against young quarterbacks who can get frazzled easily. There's going to be a lot of design blitzes. Zach Wilson, I feel bad for. The offensive line of the Jets is just horrendously bad. Man, I feel bad for Zach Wilson, for Jets fans, because I think the Chiefs just roll this game. I think it's going to look a little bit like the Bears. Not as many points scored by the Kansas City Chiefs because the Jets defense I do think is really good. I have a lot of respect for the Jets defense, but if it's 28 to 10, that's easily the 9.5 points, right? 28 to 14 even. A late score from the Jets. I just don't see the Jets scoring more than 14 points.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to take the under in that one as well. But Seahawks, Giants, Monday Night Football, two teams hoping to return to the playoffs. Giants been disappointing to start the year. The Seahawks are looking solid. 2-1 record for the Seahawks. But close spread. Giants 1.5-point home favorites, over under 46.5. A little bit of a weird one. I don't really know what to expect from either team.
Yeah, it's two very up and down teams. I was a little higher on the Giants than maybe most people were.
Yeah.
I thought Isaiah Hodgins might get involved a little more this year, not seeing a ton of that. Daniel Jones has been really, really bad. As a fantasy football owner of Daniel Jones, I thought, hey, his legs will be good. I'll draft him like last round. Y'all get a good running quarterback late in the draft. He's been brutal. I think he bounces back. I'm not a huge fan of the Seahawks defense. I know Tyreek Woolen's really good. They got a couple of pieces, but overall, I think you'll be able to see Daniel Jones run a little more than maybe in previous weeks. Give me the Giants at home.
I'm going to take the over and just root for points in that one. Neither defense has been good. Seahawks offense at least has been good. I'm just going to sit back and root for points in that one. Breaking news, Sterling. The New York Jets have found their quarterback. They have signed Trevor Siemian, pending a physical.
No chance that's better. I mean, that's my point. When everyone says sign a guy, I'm always sitting here, well, who are you going to sign? It's going to be someone like Trevor Siemian. And of course, it's Trevor Siemian. Let's go ahead and just take a look back at Trevor Siemian's career. What do you say? Let's see what Trevor Siemian has done. Trevor Siemian, let's go to StatMuse. He has completed 58.9% of passes in his career, averaging 6.7 yards per attempt, 200 yards per game. He has thrown, let's go ahead and see here. He has thrown 42 touchdowns to 28 interceptions. That's not great either.
Those are Zach Wilson type numbers.
Yeah, those are Zach Wilson type numbers. Let's type in Zach Wilson, do a little comp. What do you say? Zach Wilson. Let's get down to stats. You got to take a while because he's talked about a lot in the media right now. Not great. Zach Wilson's completed 54.9% of passes, so you get a nice little 4% boost in Trevor Siemian. Yards per attempt, 6.3 to 6.7. Yeah, we're very, very close right there. Touchdown, 17 and 22 ratio. Zach Wilson is 17 touchdowns, 22 picks. He got what's that?
He has 5 more touchdowns. Oh,
yeah. So I guess Trevor Siemian is a little bit of an upgrade. Rushing wise, though, probably not much. I'd take Zach Wilson's legs. I'll tell you what, it's going to be bad either way.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the answer for the Jets. No word on whether or not they're going to start Trevor Siemian, but he is being signed by the Jets pending a physical. Let's move on. Let's wrap up with our week 4 picks. Record-wise, not good last week. I went 1-2. I was a clean 6-0 through the first 2 weeks on this show. Last week I went 1-2, so I'm 7-2 on the season. Sterling, you unfortunately went 0-3, which brings you to 3-6 on the season.
Yeah, you guys should be fading me. Your Twitter handle is McBets. Do you see a bets in home stretch, KC?
I do
you
not.
Fade me. Like my haircut. Look at that thing. That's faded. You fade me. You don't roll with me.
All right, and if you do want to fade Sterling, sign up at DraftKings with code STB. So we have a spread bet, total bet, and upset pick of the week. You did hit upset the first 2 weeks, and you got Saints last week, so you almost went 3-0 on the upsets, which is impressive.
Yeah, almost is good. I hear that works very well in betting. I think if I go to the bookie and say, hey, I almost hit, can I get some bonus bets back? I think that'll work.
All right, best spread bet of the week. I'm going to go with the team who let me down last week. That's the Vikings. I'm going to take them minus 3.5 against the Carolina Panthers. I think the Vikings are going to bounce back here. Like I said earlier, I think they're much better than their 0-3 record indicates, and the Panthers stink. I don't care who starts a quarterback for them. Their offense has not been good. I don't think they can hang with the Vikings offense. I'll take Vikings minus 3.5 for my best spread bet of the week. What do you got for a spread bet?
Hey, so I went with the Titans last week. I thought Titans getting plus 3.5. They got that hook. Let me roll with them. Well, so this week I'm saying bleep the Titans. We're going with the Bengals minus 2.5 against the Titans. I like the minus 2.5, right? A field goal is going to seal a deal for us. The Bengals have not looked good. But again, another week, Joe Burrow hopefully gets a little more healthy. And the Bengals offense, while it was not good points-wise, they finally found a connection with Jamar Chase. They're moving Jamar Chase all around the field. That looked really, really promising to me. Not only that, it's a little misleading. T. Higgins had a miserable game. Absolutely miserable game from T. Higgins. I think he bounces back. So that, to me, has the Bengals winning by at least a field goal. I like this one here.
All right, I like it. Best total bet of the week, Ravens, Browns. I talked about this earlier. I'm going to take the under. If you look at opponent yards per play, they're number 1, number 2 in the NFL. Browns are the best defense by basically every single metric. Ravens defense has been solid, better than a lot of people expected. Don't love the Browns offense. I don't think we're going to see a repeat performance from Deshaun Watson like we saw last week. So I'm going to go under 41.5 between the Ravens and the Browns.
Yeah, I like it. Like your analytical vision of this game. But a game that I feel comfortable on, which means I'm probably going to lose this one, is Broncos Bears under 46. How the hell is the spread 46 in this game? Like, am I looking at a different game here? I thought it was going to be 36. Like, what?
I would say a big factor has to be the fact that the Broncos just gave up 70 points.
Yeah, to the best offense in the NFL.
Right.
The Bears have the worst offense in the NFL. Am I taking crazy pills here? Is there an NFL script that was leaked that I don't know about? Did they switch quarterbacks? Like, did they switch jerseys and it's the Chiefs versus the Bills? I am befuddled right here. No chance this gets to 46, which means I'm wrong. Probably fade me. But I freaking love the under in this game. If the over-under was 36, I might still take the under.
Yeah, good point. I mean, both offenses have been bad, both defenses have been bad too. But 46, yeah, it's gonna be tough to envision these teams scoring 47 or more points. So, yeah, I like that one. Let's finish off with upset pick of the week. I mentioned earlier there's a game I didn't want to talk about until I gave up my pick. I think the Patriots beat the Dallas Cowboys outright. Big upset, 7-point underdogs. I'm sticking now to my guns that the Cowboys are a fraudulent team. And once again, I bring up net yards per play. It's my favorite stat. And the Dallas Cowboys right now rank 11th in net yards per play, just plus 0.2, despite completely dominating in terms of the final score, the Giants and the Jets in the first 2 weeks. You know who's one spot above them in net yards per play? The Patriots, who I actually think have played a lot better than their final scores have indicated, whereas the Cowboys have played a lot worse than the final scores have indicated. So, yeah, sure, the Cowboys have a great defense. The Patriots have just as good of a defense, if not just as good, almost as good of a defense. So it's going to come down to which offense can execute. And also, generally, I'm going to trust Bill Belichick over Mike McCarthy. I think it's the best coach of all time against an overrated coach in Mike McCarthy. I will take the Patriots to win outright against the Dallas Cowboys.
This always makes me laugh because whenever I make the Sean Payton is closer to Mike McCarthy than he is to Bill Belichick, I know people think I'm taking a huge shot at Mike McCarthy, which I understand the thought process behind it. I always thought Mike McCarthy is a slightly better coach than people think he is. He's always the butt of jokes, and I get he always looks a little silly sometimes sitting there on the sideline. Yeah, he looks goofy. I mean, it's not Jason Garrett just constantly clapping as they're getting steamrolled, but I get he's kind of a goofy guy, McCarthy. I think he's a little underrated as a head coach at this point because everyone seems to hate on him. I don't think he's that bad. I just don't think the Patriots have that much talent on that team, no matter how good you think Bill Belichick is. Talent, a lot of times the NFL will reign true. I went with the Ravens over the Browns. I don't really have anything against the Browns. I know I've picked against them with the Titans over the Browns last week as a little upset as well. I just like the Ravens. That's what I'm going with. I don't 100% believe yet in the Browns offense. I believe in their defense. Completely believe in the Browns defense. But I'm still a little bit jury's out on the offense. The Ravens, I understand I'm talking about earlier on, hey, you know, new offensive scheme, new offensive game plan. How's it going to gel? I think it's going to gel pretty well in this game because you don't know what they're going to do. Is Lamar going to throw the ball? Is he going to run the ball? I know the running back situation is horrendous there. But does it matter? They find ways to get yards with almost anyone back there. And let's be real. The running back in that offense doesn't move the needle for me. It's Lamar Jackson with his legs. He ran for over 100 yards last week. I could see him doing that again against this Browns defense. Give me the Ravens.
Yeah, I like that as well. If I were to pick a side in that game, I'd go Ravens. So, all right, I feel confident we can bounce back after a combined, 1-5 last week. So let's do a little bit better this week with our picks. We'll wrap up with Survivor. You did win. I owe you a bottle of bourbon. I took Cowboys last week. Like I said, biggest idiot of all time. I didn't listen to my own advice. You took Dolphins, which was clearly a fantastic pick. So let's see how far you can survive, Sterling. You're now by yourself. Week 1, you took Commanders over the Cardinals. You barely escaped with that one. But then week 2, easy win with the Bills. Week 3, easy win with the Dolphins. So you can't use any of those 3 teams. Who are you picking in week 4 of Survivor?
Yeah, it's really lonely being the only one left here, Ian. You kind of left me. If this was a zombie movie, I'm looking around saying, do I really want to go on? Yeah, I do want to go on. Come on now. Give me the 49ers. I know it's the easy one this week, but I haven't used him yet. Give me the Niners. I feel like I still have a lot of good teams left as well. It's not like it's just the 49ers. I feel like I that's why I used Washington week 1. It barely worked, but it worked. Okay. Give me the 49ers. They're against the Arizona Cardinals. They're 14-point favorites.
I will say the Arizona Cardinals, it just screwed me this past week by beating the Cowboys.
Yeah, but the Cowboys, they're not the 49ers.
49ers are by far the biggest favorite of the week, a 14-point favorite at home to the Cardinals. So favored by 2 full touchdowns and 2 full extra points. That is a massive spread, but yeah, if you want to try to take the easiest pick of this week, in theory, if you based on betting odds, this is the easiest pick of the week. But yeah, I thought Cowboys as a 12-point favorite was pretty easy last week, and we saw that win.
And let's be real here. I don't have you taking one of the picks, so that means I get the full slate of board. There's the full slate here. Yeah. So I'm going to go with the easier one, hopefully easier one, which is the 49ers.
All right, so there you have it. That is our show. A reminder, if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, stick around. Don't shut it off just quite yet, because my interview with Mark Andrews is coming up right after this. If you're watching this, the video version of this podcast on YouTube, if it is Wednesday, then go ahead and check out the interview with Mark Andrews. If you're watching this on Tuesday, wait a day. Come back to the Stacking the Box YouTube channel tomorrow, which you should be subscribed to already. And then you can find the Mark Andrews interview there. Sterling, final thoughts.
Just glad the NFL is back, man. It's just so unpredictable. And that's why the NFL is great. Anytime you think you have it figured out, you don't. Anytime you think, okay, the Cowboys are going to crush, they've looked great, Arizona's looked bad, Cowboys by 30, they lose. The NFL is just, the parity is the best of any sport, in my opinion. The parity is what makes it so great. I mean, you see the Miami Dolphins put up 70 points. If they put up 20 against the Bills, would you be that shocked? That's why I love the NFL. You never know. Every game matters. 17 games. Let's freaking go.
Yeah, I am upset that we're already 3 weeks into the season. We're coming up on the quarter mark. What is it? So if there's 18 weeks, so what, 4 after this week, we're kind of at a quarter of the mark of the NFL season. It sucks. But yeah, I'm glad it's back, but it's already leaving us so quick. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, rate and review the podcast. That helps us out as well. Stick around for the Mark Andrews interview. If you're listening to the audio version of this, I hope everyone enjoys this week of football. If you do, bet on it. Sign up at DraftKings. Use the code STB. And best of luck with all your bets if you do. Until next time, he's Sterling Holmes. I'm Iain MacMillan. We'll talk to you next week.